This video I'm going to show you how to replace the wheel bearings, brakes, rotors, and grease seal and dust cap on my 2001 3-liter 2-wheel drive Ranger. The reason I'm replacing the wheel bearing is because I'm getting some clunking noises. I already replaced the ball joints and the sway bar links within the past couple years and haven't driven that many miles, so I'm pretty sure it's the wheel bearing that's the problem. So pop the cap off and take off the lug nuts. After you get the lug nuts off, take the wheel off. This is what you'll see. Then you want to remove the two caliper bolts that hold the caliper on. They're 14 millimeter, one right there and one right there. And then take the caliper off. And that's what it looks like with the caliper off. Then you can slide the brake pads out. Next, take off these two 15 millimeter bolts right here, and the other one's back behind the arm right here. Now that I've got the caliper mounting bracket off, I'm going to pop off this dust cap. Just stick a screwdriver on it like this and then twist it. The dust cap should come right off. Now that I have the dust cap off, you're going to want to make a note of the order everything comes off in. I believe it's the cotter pin, and then this castle nut, and then a washer behind that, the bearing, and then the inside bearing, and then the grease seal. There's the order the parts came out in. You got the dust cover, the castle nut, the regular nut, the washer, and then the outer bearing. And now the whole rotor should come off with the inner bearing and the grease seal on the inside. And there's the inside of the rotor with the inner bearing and the inner grease seal. If you need to press out that inner bearing, then just put something like the end of your socket wrench or something down inside the hole and then just beat it out with a hammer. It comes out a lot easier that way. There's the inner bearing, which is the bigger one, and then the inner grease seal. If you're going to reuse these, I'd recommend getting all the grease off of them and repack them. I'll show you how to do that when I pack my new bearings. Now I'm going to clean up the spindle with some carb cleaner and wipe it down real well. Next, I'm going to clean up the new rotor. There is some nasty grime. This is brand new. There's already some metal shavings in there that need to be cleaned out. If you don't clean that out, then it's going to ruin your spindle and your new brakes. So make sure you clean that out with carb cleaner or brake cleaner or something like that. And then I'm going to repack the bearings and reinstall them. So this is how the bearing comes. It comes with an extra piece on it that's not needed, which the bearing sits in. The bearing is going to fit right in here like this. Make sure you have that hole cleaned out, and then the bearing swivels in there like that. And then the grease seal is going to go on top like that. If you have a socket that's big enough, get one that's as big as that. Set it on there and then tap it in with the hammer so it goes in nice and evenly. If not, just make sure you don't bend it when you install it. And this is how you can pack the bearing. Basically just goop a bunch of the stuff right in your hand and then just pack the bearing down on top of it like that. You want to do both ends. Just pack the stuff in there as best you can. Once the grease starts coming out the other side of the wheels, that's how you know you got enough grease in there. It's made it all the way through, and then you're going to want to spin it a few times after you get it in there so that it doesn't have the weight of the vehicle on it. I'm actually going to use that extra piece the bearing came with and set it right on top of the grease seal and then try to tap it in. Now I put a whole bunch of grease on the inside of where the spindle goes and behind the bearing. Now I'm going to grease the other bearing and then reinstall the rotor. I'll reinstall your outer bearing, then reinstall your washer. Then reinstall the bolt for the outside. What I like to do is I like to put an adjustable wrench on there, tighten it pretty good amount, not as hard as you can or anything, and then loosen it up until the rotor is free and can spin a little bit. If you over tighten it, then it'll put too much pressure on the bearing and it'll seize up. So make sure you don't over tighten it. If you have it too loose, it's going to clunk and your alignment will get messed up and a few other minor things like that. So if you're going to do one or the other, make the mistake of putting it on there too loose, not too tight. But like I said, just tighten it a pretty good amount and then loosen it until you have some free movement on the rotor. Then you're going to want to install your castle nut and then put your cotter pin through the hole and bend it over so that your castle nut can't move. Alrighty, I got the bolt tightened, or the nut tightened down. That's about the movement I have on the rotor. You give it a spin. If it's any tighter than that, when it heats up, it's going to expand a little bit, so you're going to have a little bit less movement than that. So that's about how you want it. Then I stick the cotter pin through after putting the castle nut on, then bend the cotter pin over, and then I'm going to put my new dust cap on. I greased my caliper mounting bracket, the slide bolts that go in, pull them out, clean them off, grease them, and then stick them back on and make sure that this rubber piece goes all the way over the metal part there because it's supposed to be watertight. I reinstalled the caliper mounting bracket with this bolt right here and then this bolt behind here. And then I'm going to put the pads in and reinstall the caliper. Now you're going to want to put a C-clamp on or a brake clamp and compress your caliper. Compress it till it's pretty much flush. You're going to have to go back and forth between the two separate pistons. Now after you get the caliper compressed, you're going to want to reinstall the two 14mm bolts on the top and on the bottom and make sure that the flat part sticks out and sticks in towards the caliper. I'm just going to pack some extra grease inside as well as inside the dust cap.